What is up, Insaners? Game Week 27 has finally come to an end, and how was your game week? I hope you got a big green arrow. Even if you didn't, don't worry, just stick around and we'll work together on getting some decent points this week. Welcome to our Game Week 28 strategy guide, where I'll be talking about some of the best picks and transfers for this game week to help one, those of you who are using your free hit chip in Game Week 29, and two, for those who are not going to use the chip and are planning for the game weeks ahead. I'll also talk about how my team did in Game Week 27, along with preparation for Game Week 28, including my transfer strategy and some of the best captain picks for this game week. Just so that everyone can benefit from this video, I've also added a section at the end on some of the most important questions almost all FPL managers would have right now, so make sure you watch that as well. It's really going to help you make the right decisions for your FPL teams. A big shout out to all our subscribers who have been giving a lot of feedback in terms of what they would like to see more on the channel. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a huge football fan who has been following the game for almost 2 decades. I'm also an FPL enthusiast who makes regular content on FPL every week. I have a playlist dedicated to this, and if you want to know more, make sure you check that out. I also have an Instagram channel where I post daily content about FPL and football in general, so if this is something that interests you, please follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our channel Insanely Football. Also, please leave a like on this video if you like what you see. Now, just a couple of days back, I did a video on some of the best strategy options for Game Week 28 to 34, so if you're planning long term, make sure you check that out. You'll find a link to that at the end of this video, plus I've also mentioned the link in this video's description. Now, to be honest, Game Week 28 is a pretty important game week in FPL terms. There are some standout fixtures that you can target. The specific teams and fixtures to target are the Aston Villa defense playing a Newcastle side without the likes of Almiron, Saint-Maximin and Callum Wilson. Chelsea facing a leaky Leeds defense. Next, we have the London derby where an unpredictable Arsenal face the informed Tottenham with the likes of Bale, Son and Kane playing together. These are obviously apart from the other big teams who don't have a straightforward fixture this week, and we'll cover all of them in the FPL Dilemmas section at the end. Now let's talk about some of the best players to look at from these fixtures first. Aston Villa is facing Newcastle this week, who have only had 4 big chances in the last 5 games. Their expected goals are also the second worst in the league for the same time. With so many injuries to their attackers, this looks like a pretty good fixture for the Aston Villa defense. Now Martinez could have another good week with a clean sheet. The other options in defense include Matt Targett, who is the 5th highest scoring defender in the game this season. A cheaper alternative to Targett is Ezri Konsa, who's around the mid 4 million price bracket and could be a threat from set pieces as well. Now all these options, depending on who you have in your team, are a good hold, also keeping Game Week 29 in mind. A double up on the Villa defense looks pretty good, and in fact one of the defenders could be brought in this week as well, planning for the Blank Gameweek 29. So it totally depends on your budget and overall strategy. I would surely not say the same thing about their attack though. They've definitely struggled without Grealish and lack that creative threat. According to Dean Smith, Grealish could play the Newcastle game, but we'll have to wait for his press conference. If he's fit, he definitely becomes a great option along with Ollie Watkins. Now Watkins is an interesting one. His numbers have probably seen the biggest drop since Grealish's absence. From Game Week 22-24, when Grealish was playing, he took 17 shots and scored 3 goals. His XG, which is expected goals, was the second highest among all forwards during the same time. Now without Grealish, these numbers have dropped to 10 shots, no goals, and his XG doesn't even come in the top 20 forwards in the game. Surprisingly, his expected assists have risen in the absence of Grealish, telling us that he's attempting to create more. Astonishing numbers, but they clearly tell that Watkins' attacking threat is significantly reduced in the absence of Grealish. Now if you already have him in your team, you could play him ahead of the likes of Bamford this week, but he's probably not the best player to bring in this week if Grealish doesn't feature. Now coming to our second team, Chelsea. They have a really kind fixture this week, but don't have a game in Game Week 29. Having said that, all the Chelsea transfers could be long-term moves, with a special focus on Game Week 28 as they face Leeds. There are a lot of good options in defense, starting from the keeper Mendy. He's looking like a solid pick with 6 shutouts in 8 games started under Tuchel. He doesn't make a lot of saves, that's because Chelsea don't concede a lot of shots on goal, but clean sheet potential is right up there. Obviously, if you have Martinez, then he's definitely a better pick if you include their fixture in Game Week 29. Now in terms of defenders, Rudiger looks like the most valuable and safe pick under the 5 million price range. He has started every game apart from the Everton fixture, but looks like the most nailed on along with Azpilicueta. Azpi is the only one who hasn't been rested under Tuchel, so there is a chance that he might get rested very soon. Maybe or maybe not, but he's still a very good pick if you have the additional money. Him and Alonso are maverick picks in case you want to attack more with Chelsea players, have the budget and are chasing ranks. Now it's a lot more difficult to predict Chelsea's midfield under Tuchel. Mount has been putting some really good performances and surely is a safe pick among all midfielders. He scored 3 goals and played 13 key passes in the last 5 game weeks, making him the 5th highest scoring midfielder in the same time. With a favourable game against Leeds, Mount could provide a huge points haul this week. Definitely someone to have in your consideration set if you are playing your free hit chip in Game Week 29. Now from an eye test perspective, Kai Havertz looked really good against Everton and definitely had his best game in a Chelsea shirt. He assisted for both goals and played in a false nine setup, a huge differential if you ask me, and he could get a huge haul against a leaky Leeds defense this week. But in case if you don't have the budget and are probably looking at a filler midfielder, then Jorginho is another option. He might not start every game, but is definitely on penalties and could surprise you with some good point hauls. In attack, Timo Werner has had a pretty average season when it comes to goal scoring. He looks more likely to assist than score, and he just converted one of his 8 big chances over the past 5 game weeks, but has created 7 chances, getting 3 assists at the same time. He's still the best pick among all Chelsea forwards though, but probably not the best option in terms of a Chelsea asset. So to summarize, if you're playing safe, you could look at the likes of Mendy, Rudiger and Mount, but if you're okay taking some risks, then Rudiger, Azpilicueta and Havertz could be a great try to have after the blank game week 29. The third team that we're talking about in game week 28 is Tottenham. They've hit decent form with wins against Burnley, Fulham and Crystal Palace. This has coincided with Bale starting all 3 games and doing really well. Now since Bale's increase in minutes from game week 25, Tottenham have scored the most number of goals in the league. They're second for big chances created and expected goals, only behind the league leaders Man City. All this bodes well for their attackers, and with that we've come to our first option, Gareth Bale. He has played in the last 3 game weeks, scoring 4 goals and providing 2 assists. Now one could argue that these games were against lower ranked teams, but in all fairness, Tottenham were struggling against those teams as well earlier in the season. One thing I really liked about Bale since his arrival has been his impact on Kane and Son. Kane especially looks to be in great touch. Now since game week 25, Kane has been absolutely brilliant. He's top for goal attempts, expected goals, goals scored, chances created, assists, points scored, you name it, and he's topping every attacking stat. I can't really believe that I'm saying this, but Son out of all the 3 options look the least attractive, especially when he's owned by more than 50% managers right now. His numbers from game week 18 have just dropped off really badly. Since then he's played 10 games, returning in only 4 of them and scoring just twice. His stats from game week 25 to 27 also suggest that he's playing a bit wider and has taken more of a creative role, creating 14 chances and providing 3 assists, numbers which are top among all Spurs midfielders during the same time. I still think he's a much safer pick than Bale, with guaranteed more minutes on the pitch as compared to Bale, who has been playing around for 60 to 70 minutes in the last 3 starts. Now if you ask me, Harry Kane is a must-have, and if you don't have him right now, you should find a way to get him in your team. For all managers who like to play safe, Son is the go-to man. If you're okay taking the additional risk and are doing points chasing in your mini leagues, definitely go for the powerful differential Gareth Bale. In conclusion, a double up on Spurs is surely on the cards. You could even bet on a triple up for the next 2 game weeks, depending on how things go for Spurs in the Europa League, before looking at possible replacements. Another huge differential for the next few weeks could be Reguilon in defense. He's probably the riskiest pick of the lot. He has had injury concerns throughout the season, but looks to be back in contention. Obviously we don't know if he's going to start every game, and with Europa League also in play this week, Mourinho might bench him for the game in game week 28 or even game week 29. He still provides a great way to differentiate when most of the managers would be going for either a double up or triple up Spurs attack for the next couple of weeks. Reguilon doesn't come cheap at around the mid 5 million price range, and that might be a lot of money, especially when Spurs don't keep a lot of clean sheets, but he's a great high risk, high reward pick for sure. Now these are some of the standout picks in my opinion for game week 28. Your top picks might be very different, and it depends on your overall strategy. If you're preparing for game week 29, then Spurs and Villa options could be huge. In case you're preparing for game week 28 and are okay with Chelsea not having a game in 29, then Chelsea options also look really good for this week. Apart from these teams and players, there's also a strong case for Arsenal players as well, as they have decent fixtures along with the game in game week 29. The likes of Leno in goal, Tierney in defense, and Saka and Aubameyang in midfield could be all huge enablers, as all of them have less than 10% ownership. Arsenal's form is quite mixed, but Aubameyang definitely looks like a very interesting pick. His recent change in position and playing more centrally has helped him find the net 4 times in the last 5 game weeks, and also provides a decent goal threat. Spurs might be a tricky game, but Aubameyang could prove to be a great replacement for the likes of Salah, who has been in poor form recently. Guys, now that we've covered some of the standout fixtures and players to target for game week 28, I'll quickly cover an update from game week 27 and how my team did this week. There were 2 huge performances this week, with Kane and Shaw both returning massive double-digit hauls. Shaw was really impressive in United's 2-0 win against Man City. He kept a clean sheet and scored an unlikely goal. Our decision to get him and play him against the likes of Chelsea and Man City has been spot on. Harry Kane was our other big hitter, scoring 19 points. He was all over the pitch as he scored 2 goals and provided 2 assists against Palace. I guess we were unlucky that we only had him as a vice captain, and we fell into the trap of captaining a City player who had a double game week. But it is what it is. We played a 3-man defense with Martinez and he got another clean sheet. It was a lucky one to be honest, and Wolves should have scored in that game. Then we had the double City defense with Stones and Diaz, and with United scoring, both lost their clean sheet and only gave us a point each in that game. It was even worse against Southampton as John Stones was rested and Ruben Diaz only got a point, conceding 2 goals in the game. Another very average week for our midfield. Obviously the decision to get Son in place of Fernandes didn't go down well. We lost a net 5 points on that transfer as Bruno scored a penalty and got 2 bonus points. I still back my decision to sell him, and we won't be getting him back at least for the next couple of weeks. I want to see how my strategy pans out. Salah could be the one to make space if he gets another blank though. I'm trying to be patient with him, but his value is such that it's becoming difficult to defend him. Lingard also just gave us 5 points. He looked sharp and won the penalty for Hammers. It was a weird one as Rice let him take that one. I don't know, I just had a feeling that he'll miss this, and he did miss, but he scored on the rebound. So overall that goal only gave us 3 points instead of 5. We also played Rafinha, who was another player unlucky to not get anything from the game against West Ham. He created some really good chances for Bamford, but the Leeds forward couldn't convert any of those, meaning that the Leeds midfielder only gave us 2 points. Our last name in midfield, Gundogan, was a bit of a saving grace this week. He scored a total of 10 points across both games and gave us 20 points as captain. Definitely not as good as Kane, but we'll take that. We paid a 2 up front with Antonio to support Kane and got him for a hit this week. The move was a good one, keeping the Leeds defense in mind, but the West Ham forward didn't get involved at all in the game. He looked pretty off from the beginning and his performance was a bit worrying. Obviously we're not moving him out this week as he can score against Man United and also has a game in game week 29. I feel overall things could have been a lot different with the Kane captaincy, but I think we were a little above what everyone else scored this week, so we'll take that. Now let's talk about our team for game week 28 and what we are planning to do in terms of transfers. Post that we'll cover some of the most popular captain picks for this week as well. So because of Lingard being ineligible to play in game week 28, we can only play a maximum of 4 across midfield, and that gives us 2 options. Either we could play a 3-4-3 or a 4-4-2. I feel playing both Rafinha and Bamford against a very strong Chelsea defense is pushing it a bit. It's a choice to play one of them, and from what I've seen so far from Leeds United and their games, Rafinha looks like a better pick. He's far more creative and also carries a decent goal threat. He's a very skillful player, and his flamboyance might just get Leeds something from that game. In terms of our defense, we have 3 solid picks on the City double up of Ruben Diaz and John Stones, and Luke Shaw from Man United. This is probably the last game for which we have a City double up. In game week 30, we're planning to get a Chelsea defender, if not before. The other defensive options that we have are Dallas and Loughton. To be honest guys, both don't look that great this week, and this is where we are thinking of making a transfer. We'll discuss this in a bit more detail in the next section. Let's finish the rest of our squad. For now we are mostly not selling Salah, although triple up on Spurs could be an option, but I feel Salah could be seen for at least one more game. If Liverpool's performance against Wolves is as bad as it was against Fulham, he's a definite sell then. That's completely my thought guys, but if you want, you could still take a different route by selling him and getting someone like a Son or a Bale or even an upgrade to KDB, but Tottenham right now makes more sense as they also have a game in game week 29. Aubameyang from Chelsea could also be another option as he's a huge differential who plays in game week 29 as well. Ilkay Gundogan and Son complete our midfield 4 this week. Coming to our attack, we are playing 2 up front with Harry Kane and Mikel Antonio. Harry Kane is looking hungry for goals guys and holds the record for the most number of goals in this North London derby against Arsenal. He's a very strong pick for us this week. Antonio completes the lineup with the matchup against Man United, and he could prove to be difficult for the likes of Harry Maguire and Lindelof to deal with. Coming to our transfer options for game week 28, we have 2 approaches in mind. The first is to replace Loughton for either a Chelsea defender, and we're considering the budget pick in Rudiger. This obviously is more of a long-term pick and won't really help us in game week 28. The other option is getting a Brighton defender. Now mostly Weltman in this case, especially with Lamptey out for the rest of the season, he could be a very important pick. He's also the most attacking option among all Brighton defenders and is a super budget option below the 4.5 million price range. This transfer also gives us an additional player to play in defense this week, along with giving us another player for game week 29. It's a much safer approach, balancing the next 2 game weeks in the best possible way. Now there's another thought of replacing John Stones of Man City and probably getting KDB to double up on the City attack. This move would obviously mean that Salah goes out and in comes KDB. I'm not really sure right now whether that will be worth a hit this week, but after that performance against Southampton, KDB looks like a really good option. The second approach that we have in mind is to transfer out Mo Salah again, but this time it's either for Bale or Mason Mount. Just like our defense, the Bale transfer focuses on a balance of game week 28 and 29, but then we become a bit too heavy on the Spurs attack. The other option is to go for Mount, who has been Chelsea's best player in attack over the past few weeks. Now this again is a long-term transfer, which won't benefit us in game week 29, but Mount against Leeds looks quite enticing. Guys, now that our team preparation is done, let's talk about the best captain picks for game week 28. There are a couple of decent options, but no clear standout picks this week. The first on our list is the pretty obvious choice in Bruno Fernandes. He's an insane FPL asset, and he just keeps returning even if he's having a bad game. To be honest guys, he's not been at his best, but with United getting a decent chunk of penalties and Fernandes converting most of them, he looks like a decent bet against West Ham. To be fair, it's not going to be easy, but Fernandes has enough quality to create something in the game. Our second option is Harry Kane against Arsenal. He just loves scoring against the Gunners. He holds the record for most goals scored in North London derbies at 11 goals. Kane's numbers in the past 3 games against Crystal Palace, Burnley and Fulham looked really good, and he's definitely chasing that golden boot this season. I think this is good for us FPL managers, as it gives us a chance to score some huge points in the coming weeks. The third captaincy option that we have in mind has to be KDB ahead of Gundogan. KDB scored a brace against Southampton, he looked really sharp and was taken off by Pep around 70 minutes, while Gundogan played the whole game. Gundogan played in a much deeper role against the Saints, and there is a chance that he might get rested after he played the whole 90 minutes. Definitely KDB is the better pick out of the two, but against Fulham, who has been really good defensively, it might actually be a lot tighter than most of us think. Our alternate picks include Heung-min Son, who has looked more creative with Bale coming in the team and has created the most number of chances over all Spurs players in the last 4 game weeks. Now Timo Werner is another decent option playing a pretty average Leeds defense who concede a lot of chances and goals. He still can get involved in the game, and if you own him, he could be a great differential captain this week. Now let's get on to the final section and one of the most important parts of this video guys. We'll be doing a quick fire Q&A where we'll be answering some of the most common and important questions FPL managers have this week. Coming to the first question, is a double up on Man City defense worth it? If not, what are some possible replacements? Now I don't think a double up on City defense is essential by any means. There's so much rotation, especially when they're midweek games in the league, and with the Champions League game coming up, that trend is set to continue. City haven't kept any clean sheets in the last 4 games now, so there's a good chance that you might shift one of their defenders. Possible replacements are Rudiger and Azpilicueta, who are the most nailed on picks in a good Chelsea defense at the moment. Our next question is what to do with Leeds players in game week 28. Their game against Chelsea looks a bit tough, so I won't play Dallas if I have him. If there's a choice between Bamford and Rafinha, I would definitely play Rafinha and put Bamford on my bench. Let's say if you only own one and that is Bamford, it might be worth to keep him on the bench and play an extra midfielder or a defender this week. The third question is should we target any Leicester players right now? They have a good run from game week 32 to 35 and I might consider them that time. I feel by then the likes of Maddison also should be back from injury. The next few games especially should be seen as a good eye test for the defense and Iheanacho, who has scored 2 goals in his last 3 starts for Leicester. He's probably the only decent option right now, with Vardy not scoring at all since he's returned. Now the fourth question focuses on the strategy bit in general. What should we focus on? Game week 29 blank or long-term planning, including the game week 28 transfer? It actually depends on your team. If you already have about 8 to 9 players who have a game in game week 29 and don't have your wildcard, I think you should probably take a more balanced approach and not go super heavy on Leeds and Aston Villa, as you would require to make more transfers to take them out. In case you're using a free hit in game week 29, then it becomes pretty clear that you forget about the blank and focus just on long term. Now there also might be a case that you only have 5 to 6 players for game week 29 but also have your wildcard available. In this scenario, try to get as many players as you can for the blank game week in 29. See, the thing is that there are only 4 fixtures in game week 29. A lot of FPL teams would have similar players, so having about 8 to 9 of them should be fine, as it will keep you around the average score. Let's come to our next question. What are the possible replacements for Mo Salah this week? Now in case you've decided to move out Salah, possible replacements are Aubameyang from Arsenal, KDB from Man City, and the Tottenham duo of Bale or Son. Aubameyang and Bale are high risk, high reward kind of picks. Son is probably a defensive move here to cover the points you lose from his effective ownership. KDB doesn't play in game week 29 and 33, but provides a very explosive captaincy option in the coming game weeks. Now personally speaking, if I'm not running to get 11 players for game week 29 and planning a little long term, KDB stands out for me. Our next question is around the West Ham players. What to do with them? West Ham have a mixed sort of run in the next few games, but that shouldn't stop you from having at least a double up on them, keeping the blank game week 29 in mind. I would play them ahead of the Leeds players in game week 28, even though they're facing Man United. Lingard is not eligible, so he'll have to be on your bench, but you could definitely play the likes of Cresswell, Soufal and Antonio this week. Now we also have a question around the Saints players. Should we consider getting Southampton players? Southampton don't have a game in game week 29 and 33, but have a mini good run of fixtures facing Brighton, Burnley, West Brom and Crystal Palace in the next few games. These fixtures look good on paper, but Southampton have been struggling in the league for quite some time now. I would definitely not look at the defensive assets as they concede too many goals, and with Danny Ings injured, the only realistic option could be Che Adams. I genuinely feel that there are better options available elsewhere, so I would avoid all players from Southampton. The last two questions that we have are based on chips. Should we use our triple captain chip this week? Chelsea could be an option as they face Leeds, but there are not many triple captain options in the Chelsea squad. I'd probably hold my chip this week and wait for a better single game week or even a double game week in the coming time. Let's look at the final question of this section. Should we play a free hit in game week 29? I feel there's no one correct answer to it. In case you only have 3 to 4 players in your team who have a game in game week 29, then it definitely makes sense. But if you're already heading into game week 28 with even 6 to 7 players, I think you could avoid using the chip in 29. The blank game week 33 looks like a better attacking week to play the chip. You have more fixtures to choose from and there are higher chances to differentiate yourself from the crowd. Guys, I think I've covered most of the questions for this game week. In case I've missed out on something, just let me know in the comments below. That'll be all for today's video, guys. I know it was a long one, but there was just so much to cover and discuss. I hope you enjoyed watching today's video and I really appreciate you staying around till the end. Please do hit the like button if you found this video useful. As always, if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe to our channel Insanely Football for all the good FPL stuff that we're doing. All the best for game week 28 and I'll see you Insaners next time.